There is something painful about watching a man who once stood as a hero end up as a prisoner. A man who could lift the gates of a city, destroy armies, and shake nations, yet couldn't control his own heart. That man was Samson, the strongest man who ever lived, yet the one who fell hardest. Samson's story began before his birth. His mother was barren for many years. She had no child and no hope left in her heart. But one day, something supernatural happened. An angel of the Lord appeared and told her she would conceive a son chosen by God to begin the deliverance of Israel from their enemies, the Philistines. But there were conditions. This child was to be a Nazirite from birth. He was to be set apart for God's purpose. No razor was to touch his hair. No wine was to pass his lips, and he was never to touch anything unclean. When Samson was born, the Spirit of God rested upon him. He wasn't just strong in muscles, he was strong in destiny. There was a divine mark upon his life. Every time he grew older, his strength grew too. Strength that came not from his training or diet, but from the Spirit of God. Samson became a symbol of what divine power could do through a human being. But as he grew, something else began to grow inside him, a restless desire to do things his own way. He loved excitement, he loved challenges, and most of all, he loved women. One day, Samson saw a Philistine woman in the city of Timnah. She wasn't from his people, but he fell for her instantly. He told his parents, "Get her for me. She's the one I want." They tried to advise him, reminding him that God had called him to be separate, but Samson's heart was already captured. During his journey to arrange the marriage, a young lion suddenly attacked him. In a flash, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. He didn't tell anyone. Days later, when he passed by again, he found bees had built honey inside the lion's carcass. He scooped it out and ate it. That moment became a symbol, sweetness born from something that once tried to kill him. But it was also a warning, not everything that looks sweet is safe. At his wedding feast, Samson made a riddle about the lion and the honey. When his Philistine guests couldn't solve it, they pressured his bride to get the answer from him. She cried until he told her, and then she revealed it to them. When they answered correctly, Samson realized he'd been betrayed by the woman he loved. Anger flamed in his heart. He left in rage, and when he returned, she had been given to another man. That heartbreak became the first step in his downfall. Samson began to fight back in his own strength, not in God's wisdom. He burned the Philistines' fields, destroyed their crops, and struck down many of their men. The more they attacked him, the more he retaliated. It became a cycle of revenge, and in the middle of it, Samson forgot that he was supposed to be God's instrument, not a personal avenger. Yet, despite his flaws, God's hand never left him completely. Each time he called upon the Lord, power would rush through him again. He once killed 1,000 Philistines with nothing but the jawbone of a donkey. He once carried the massive gates of a city on his shoulders and dropped them on a mountain. The Spirit of God still used him, not because he was perfect, but because God's mercy is deep. But Samson's greatest battle was never against the Philistines. It was against himself. His heart longed for affection, and that longing led him into the arms of another Philistine woman, Delilah. She was beautiful, persuasive, and dangerous. The Philistine leaders offered her a great reward if she could find out the secret of Samson's strength, and she accepted. Delilah began softly. She asked Samson where his strength came from. At first, he played along. He told her false things, and each time she tried them, he broke free easily. But she didn't stop. Day after day, she pressed him, cried to him, and made him feel guilty for not being open with her. She used love as a weapon, and Samson, tired of the constant pressure, finally gave in. He told her everything. He said his strength came from God, that his hair was a sign of his covenant as a Nazirite. If his hair was cut, he would lose that strength. That night, Samson laid his head on Delilah's lap and fell asleep, not knowing it was the most dangerous sleep of his life. While he slept, she called a man to shave off his hair. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He jumped up, thinking he could fight as before. But this time, nothing happened. The Spirit of God had left him. The Philistines captured him. They gouged out his eyes. They tied him in bronze chains and forced him to grind grain in their prison, an ox. The mighty warrior became a blind slave. He had lost his strength, his freedom, and his dignity. But the story didn't end there, because God never truly abandons those he loves. As Samson walked in circles, day after day, something began to change. He started to think. He started to pray again. He remembered where his strength really came from. He realized that it wasn't his hair that gave him power. It was his relationship with God. And while he was in that prison, his hair began to grow again. A quiet, powerful sign that God was not done with him. Time passed, and one day, the Philistines gathered in a grand temple to celebrate their victory over Samson and to praise their false god, Dagon. They were drunk with laughter and pride. They called for Samson to be brought out so they could mock him. He was led by a small boy because he couldn't see. Thousands of people filled the building, rulers, soldiers, men, and women, all cheering at his downfall. But in that moment of humiliation, Samson's heart turned fully back to God. He asked the boy to place his hands on the two main pillars of the temple. And he prayed, quietly but sincerely, "Lord, remember me. Strengthen me just this once, that I may do your will again." Then the power of God filled him one last time. He pushed with all his might. The pillars cracked, the walls trembled, and the whole building came crashing down. Samson gave his life in that act, but in doing so, he defeated more enemies in his death than he ever had in his life. His story ended in sacrifice, but also in redemption. Samson's journey teaches us that calling and gifting are not the same as character. You can be chosen by God and still fall if you walk away from Him. But it also teaches us that even after failure, God's mercy can rebuild what was destroyed. When Samson lost his sight, he gained vision. When he lost his strength, he found faith. When he was humiliated, he discovered humility. Many of us can see ourselves in Samson's story. We've all had moments when we depended more on our own strength than on God. We've all been blinded by things we thought were love, but led to pain. And maybe, like Samson, you've found yourself trapped, not by chains of iron, but by regret, shame, or mistakes from your past. But listen, your story doesn't have to end in defeat. The same God who restored Samson can restore you too. Your hair can grow again. Your hope can rise again. Your purpose can live again. God doesn't give up on His chosen ones. Even when you feel far, His mercy is near. Sometimes, God allows us to fall, not to destroy us, but to humble us, to bring us back to the place where we can see that without Him, we are nothing. It's in the prison of reflection that strength is truly reborn. Samson's last prayer wasn't long or fancy. It was real. It came from a broken heart, and God heard it. Because God listens to the prayers of the humble. He restores the ones who admit they need Him again. Maybe you've failed. Maybe your strength is gone. Maybe people have written you off. But if you turn back to God, He can give you one more chance, just like Samson. One more opportunity to make your life count. One more moment to bring glory to His name. Samson's story ends not with shame, but with redemption. He may have fallen in love with the wrong person, but in the end, he fell back into the right hands, God's hands. And that made all the difference. So, if you're listening today, let this be your reminder: your past mistakes don't define your final story. God can still write a new chapter for you. Even in your weakness, He can show His strength. Even in your failure, He can reveal His faithfulness. Because the same God who gave Samson power can give you purpose again. The same God who restored his strength can restore your joy. And the same God who used his death to win victory can use your pain to bring glory. No matter how strong you think you are, never forget that true strength doesn't come from muscles, money, or might. It comes from God. And no matter how far you've fallen, remember, grace can reach deeper than failure ever did. Your hair will grow again. Your strength will return. Your story will rise. Because even the strongest can fall, but those who turn back to God will always rise again. No matter how strong you are, your true strength is not in your power. It is in God.